Should I be proud of myself? Yes. Am I proud of myself? No. So hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Saskia. I'm a first year psychology student at the University of Southampton, and today I'm going to talk to you about how to get a first in a university essay. I have only done one university essay that I've got a grade back for, and I did get a first, so therefore I have a 100% rate of getting a first. I'm qualified. So yes, I got first in my first ever university essay. Should I be proud of myself? Yes. Am I proud of myself? No. So yeah, I got a 78, which is, I'm gonna say, quite good. I don't know how other people did in their essay really. I think most people got 2 1s, but I don't really know how I did in, you know, terms of the university, because we didn't find out for that one. Whereas for like other things we get our grades based on how other people did, and it sucks. Like if we did well but other people also did really well, it doesn't matter that we did well, because our wellness, if it's not as good as the other people that did well, shoves us down in that little curve. So I'm going to talk to you kind of about how I got my first. I don't know how relevant it will be to different subjects. I study psychology, so you know, if you're doing like sciencey science, I don't know how relevant this will be, but generally I'm going to try and give advice on the structure of the essay and like planning for the essay, and then just some general tips and like talk about things that I did in my essay that seemed to be good. Like some of my feedback from my tutor was literally just good, full stop. This section was nice, full stop. And I'm like, but why was it nice? Please tell me, because I don't know what I've done well. I just know that I did well. I don't know how I did well though. So first of all, we're going to talk about planning the actual essay. So you have an essay question. Our tutor gave us an essay question. I had the question. Where do you go from there? Break down the question. So our question was, are positive self-statements effective in boosting mood and self-esteem? So from that, in the essay you have to answer the question. At some point, probably in the intro and conclusion, you have to answer the question. You can't just not answer the question. Like, you can write a beautiful essay, but if you don't answer the question, it's completely irrelevant. You need to think about what the question is asking you. You know, like if it's a to what extent question, you need to answer to what extent. Like you need to provide an answer to what it is asking you. Like if you're being asked to contrast 2 different things, you need to be contrasting them, and contrast is different. As you know, I spoke about this in an IB video, so I just thought I'd mention command terms are very important. Like ours did not really have command terms, but I know that some university essays will literally be like, you know, compare like treatment for this disease with treatment for this disease, or compare this with this, and things like that. So you need to know what is the question asking you and how are you going to answer it. So basically you read the question, you know, what does it want? So ours was mood and self-esteem, and so you had to refer to both. Like, you know, really read the question several times, highlight all the keywords, make sure you understand what you need to talk about and where you need to talk about it. Then next step, definitions. In your introduction, you need to define things because people don't know what you're talking about. So write down all of the words in the question that you need to define. And then, you know, make a little checklist of words that you need to define so that you know you're going to collect definitions, because you will always need to define something and you will always need to collect definitions. So then what I did is we had like an original paper to read. If you don't have an original paper to read, literally just bung your question into Google. Look in I don't know if it's the Google Scholar section or if it's just the like journal article section. Look in that bit, or go on ResearchGate or different websites. Bung in your question, bung in like elements of your question. Our question was, are positive self-statements effective in boosting mood or self-esteem? So, you know, I could bung into ResearchGate, positive self-statements, comma, mood, self-esteem, or just positive self-statements, look for some general papers, then put like positive self-statements, mood, click a couple of those. So in my original like planning phase, I think I read around 30 articles, which is a lot. Well, it might not be a lot. I forgot to mention my essay was 1,500 words. I don't know how long university essays normally are because I've only ever done one. So yeah, I got quite a lot of, you know, I read a lot of papers and I kind of made like a master document. So I literally called it like essay research mood. And then I made another one, essay research self-esteem. So I summarised the key paper, and by summarise I mean I literally just like copy and pasted some pictures over, like just took the key facts and like, you know, any key definitions like I had at the top of each paper. So basically what I did was I put the title, you know, like Wood et al, positive self-statements, power for some, peril for others, then the date, then the next section, definitions, any definitions in the paper, which, you know, there's probably going to be quite a few. And then any kind of like theoretical frameworks and explanations. So some papers did not have any, some papers had a lot. And that was really helpful for me because I was like, well, I can talk about these frameworks because... And then I did like the actual study, and then I wrote a couple of bits about the discussion because you have to like critically analyse what is actually going on. I don't really normally talk with my hands, but they are going around. And then underneath that, I put the reference. So I did not actually have to reference when I wrote my essay. I did not reference a single thing when I wrote my essay because everything was already referenced in my like master research document. So then once I had all of my research, I kind of had a look through for the ones, like I reread my document and I had a look through for the ones that were the most relevant. So because I was talking about one main paper, I looked if any of the papers I had got had been cited by the main paper because that was kind of important to me. And then after that I looked for the ones that had like, you know, I looked for the ones that were just the most relevant and also the easiest to understand because this was my first time reading like proper journal articles and stuff like that, and some of them were really old and like some of them I couldn't copy and paste from and some of them were just not good. So I tried to find the ones that I actually understood the most, had some good definitions, because I didn't want to have like 30 references. I wanted to, you know, if I was going to get my definition from one paper, I wanted to use the paper for something. I didn't want to just cite it for the definition and then just shove it in my references, and it was kind of a waste of a, like it was kind of a waste of a paper. I tried to then pick like the most relevant papers. So obviously I had my main paper, you know, then I looked for like 2 that were specific to mood, 2 that were specific to self-esteem, and that was kind of my main selection. Like in my final essay I talked about, I think 5 or 6 papers as in like properly. I ended up referencing 16 different things. Some of them were just for like random statistics. Like after I sent in my draft, my tutor was like, you know, can I have a definition of this? Or like explain what this means. And I was like, well, I can't find this in the papers I've already used, so let's find another paper. And that was fine. I don't know how many references you're supposed to use. I think I read somewhere it's like 1 per 100 words or 1 per 150 words. So I was a little bit over, but like it's not, I don't think it's a problem. Just don't use like 40 references. Like I tried to condense the amount of references I was using by using like one paper for like 7 things. So then you've kind of got all of your research, you've got everything. I then literally just like got out a little notebook and I just sat there and started scribbling. And I was like, well, what do I want to talk about? Like what do I think I can talk about in this essay? So I was like, well, obviously, you know, first I'm gonna have to talk about my main paper, and then where can I go from that paper? Because you don't want to just like jump from paper to paper. You need them to like link with a golden thread. English GCSE, you need a golden thread in your writing. I think my golden thread was like CBT or like anxiety, because I found a really good study that I used right at the end when I was like, here is my golden thread. And I just kind of like briefly mentioned that the whole way through. So I literally just like took out a notebook and started writing, and I was like, well, I want to talk about CBT and anxiety. And then I was like, well, what studies do I have that link to that? And I was like, well, what studies do I have that link to those studies so I can like, you know, talk about this and then nicely move on to my CBT thing rather than being like, these are positive self-statements, CBT. You know? So then once I kind of had an idea, I didn't have a structure. Like I did not know what I was doing, but I knew I needed an introduction and a conclusion, and that was it. Like I didn't plan like paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3. I just went because I was like, I don't know, this was my first ever university essay. So I did not know really what I was doing, but it seems to have gone okay. So what I did, I just started writing. I don't think I did the introduction first because I couldn't do it, because I did not know how to start it. I basically just wrote a summary of all the papers I'd done in an academic way. So I was like, oh, well, these people found this. And then like, you know, critically analyse it, like, oh, well, temporal validity, oh, well, sample size, something like that. And then I was like, well, that's another thing I did. So I was like, oh, well, you know, these ones had a really small sample size. And then I was like, well, you know, on the other hand, these ones had a really good sample size and this supports that paper, so it's relevant. Find an issue with your main paper and find another paper that fixes that issue, if that makes sense. So like when you've got a problem, like a gap in, so you know, if you have a really small sample size in the first paper, find a paper that has a really big sample size. If your paper's really old, find a really new paper that's like has the same kind of results. Then, you know, I literally just went in and I wrote. Like, I just summarised all my studies and I just wrote them all down there. I didn't care about the word count. When you're just like doing an initial write, ignore the word count until you start structuring it. Like, I literally just wrote out every single study that I'd mentioned. Then I kind of tried to like, you know, reorganise them, and I was like, oh wow, this entire paragraph is useless. I was like, I don't like how it sounds. I was like, this study doesn't link anymore. And I just completely deleted it. I was like, I don't need it. Moved it to another document because I was like, well, I might want it at some point, but it's not relevant right now. That's the thing. Don't delete. Move it to another document. Like, I had like my draft essay, and then I had like draft essay removals or something like that, where like any big chunks of work, like even just a couple of sentences that I removed from my draft, got put there in case, like in my feedback, my tutor was like, Saskia, you need to talk about another study here. And I was like, well, it's a good thing I already did. So yeah, I literally just like wrote everything out, reorganized the structure. Once I kind of had like my main body, I then tried to do an introduction, because once I'd like explained everything, I knew exactly like what definitions, like I already knew what definitions needed to be in there, but I kind of knew like how to order my introduction and how to do that. So I did the introduction and then I read it completely through. My introduction was not good. I did not know what I was doing. I literally just kind of like defined some words and then was like, oh, well, you know, from this, here's my paper. It wasn't good. At the beginning, I had no idea how to introduce. So once I'd done the introduction, I read the introduction and then I read my full essay through, and then I just wrote a brief conclusion. Like literally just like one sentence summarising each study, but kind of like linking it together. And then I like finally answered the question. Like my final sentence was literally answering the question. So my question was, are positive self-statements effective in boosting mood and self-esteem? My final sentence was, you know, like, although there is some evidence to suggest that positive self-statements may be like beneficial in boosting mood and self-esteem, there is also contrasting evidence suggesting they could have negative impacts, and therefore individuals should be cautious when using them. Something like that. Right, editing an essay is hard, because I read back through my essay and I was like, well, this is all good. And obviously I thought it was good because it was my essay. I was like, yeah, I did a good job. So I left it for like 3 days, and then I printed it out and I just went through and I was like, right, have I spelt anything wrong? Like, I read through it first time around and I was like, is anything wrong? Like, is my reference formatting not correct? Have I spelt anything wrong? Have I forgot a full stop somewhere? Like, my first read through was just like, have I messed it up? Like, I put it through Grammarly, then I checked the word count, and I think I was like 200 words over. I was like, basically, I think my conclusion is really good. I don't want to remove any of it. So I knew mentally conclusion wasn't getting touched. Then I went through the paper and I highlighted things in like pink, or like I italicized them or something like that. Anything that was like, you know, a little bit out of place, or just like a sentence that could do with rejigging and I could maybe cut a few words out. Highlighted it all in pink. Then I went back through like a few days later when I had a clear head, read it again, did the same thing. Then edited all my pink sentences. I was like, right. I was like, is this sentence adding anything to the essay? No. Can it add anything to the essay? And if it could, I was like, right, can I shorten it and make it useful? And if it couldn't, delete it. Well, moved to my removals page. So then once I'd kind of got it down to I think 1500 words, it was pretty much time to hand in the draft. And I was like, well, it's not gonna get any better. Like, I just kept rereading it and there was nothing I could think to change it. Like, I just kept rereading it and I was like, what do I do? I had no idea where else I could change it. And obviously this was my first essay, so I was like, well, I didn't really know. And because we had a draft, I just handed it in. I was like, right, off you go. And then my tutor gave me all my feedback. I read all the feedback and then I wrote a list. So then I literally wrote a list in my notebook. This just says like essay feedback and like define self, fix introduction, you know, general things like that. I'm not a big fan of the library. Like, I'm perfectly fine working in my room, but I was like, right, I'm gonna take myself off to the library on like, I don't know, Friday morning, Saturday morning, some kind of morning, and just sit here for like 3 hours and do all of the feedback. like do the majority of it. So I knew, like, you know, I needed a definition of the self. So I spent like an hour looking through papers trying to find like a good definition of the self. And then I was like, well, where can I put this within my introduction? And then I was like, well, he said to fix my introduction. I kept all my definitions and then I just kind of removed it and I was like, right, let's start again. Like I literally just shoved it off to another document. I was like, let's rewrite the introduction as if I never had one. And I did that like 3 times, to be honest, because my introduction was weak. And my introduction was still weak when I got my final feedback. Like, my introduction never got that good because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know, you know, like how much am I setting up? How much? It didn't work for me. So I did all of my feedback in the library. I literally did it all in like 4 hours. And then I came back and I left it because we had like a month from when we got our feedback to when it was actually due in. And I just left it for like a week and then I came back to it, checked all my feedback again, and I was like, have I actually answered the feedback? Like, I read through my feedback document, I read through my list, and I was like, well, have I actually done what he wanted me to do? Because obviously once I did some of my feedback and changing, I added a lot of words and things needed to go. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get rid of the bits that he's commented on being good. So anything he didn't comment on was like, it could go. Like, it wasn't going to go, but it was like, it was free real estate. It could go if it had to go. The hardest bit was probably cutting down the words. It really was. Like, once I'd done all of my essay feedback and stuff, I think I was only like 100 words over. But it was all like, if I could have given in a 1600 word essay, it would have been better. Like, I know that those words were like actually adding to my essay rather than just kind of existing or like hindering it. So then I literally just like kept rereading through my essay. I cut out like sentences and definitions that weren't needed, or like if I could kind of paraphrase a definition more, I got rid of it. Like I would. Like anything I could shrink, I shrunk. Eventually I got it down to 1500 words. Then, here is where I went wrong. We had to give it in Microsoft Word. When I did it on Google Docs. Everything was perfect, my references were fine. I downloaded it into Microsoft Word and I forgot to reread it once I got into Microsoft Word. Like, I looked at it, like I opened the document and I scrolled through and I was like, right, everything looks fine. Everything was not fine. My references had all been like shimmied along and like random bits had been cut out from my references and they just hadn't come across. So I then lost marks on my references that I should not have lost because in Google Docs it was fine. So if you're doing it in Google Docs and you download it to Microsoft Word, reread it fully. Check everything formatting wise has not been deleted and check your word count, because another essay I was doing, the results I haven't got back yet, was, I think we were allowed 1500 words and it was 1500 words in Google Docs and then it was like 1503 in Microsoft Word. So like, when you get it in Microsoft Word, properly look at it, you know, do that. So then I handed it in, I forgot about it, I was like, right, no problem. Then I got my feedback and it was like, right, here, you got a 78. I was like, okay. I should have been more happy, I wasn't, okay? I'm a perfectionist. I was just like, yeah, I expected that, because in my head I was like, I'm smart, I can do this. Like, I'm grateful for my grade. This is the thing, people always, Jesus, bully me for this. I remember I made a TikTok about my GCSE grades and I was like, I'm not happy with them, because I wasn't. I got B's and A's and I was like, well, I'm not happy with them because they're not as high as my predicted grades should have been. And you know, they're great given the circumstances. And people just go ham on you. We all have different levels of, you know, like pride, and we all have different expectations. If I was expecting a 2-2 and I got a 2-2, I would be fine with it. If I was expecting a 2-2 and I got 2-1, I would be happy. I was expecting a first and I got a first, so I was like, right, okay. Like, success is relative. Not everyone's going to be happy with the same results. Can we just get that out of the way before people start commenting like, oh my god, you're so ungrateful. Like, no, I'm grateful, but also I could have done better. Right, so now that is like the process of doing the essay. Now I'm going to talk to you about general like tips and like structural points. So for psychology, we have to do APA formatting. We have to do APA 7. I read up on this because I did not know what this was. If you have to follow a specific format, have a look for papers that already follow that format. Have a look for essays that already follow that format. Read whatever they tell you, because I was like, you have to double space, it has to be in like these fonts. It was like, if it's in Times New Roman, it can be size 12, but if it's in like, I don't know, Calibri, it has to be 11. Like, read all of that, because eventually that's going to be worth marks, and like you could start just randomly losing points because, you know, you forgot to double space it. And like, something like that. So like check up on your structure, check how you're supposed to do it, you know, like check if you need like a title page. Like I don't think we technically needed a title page, but my tutor was like, well, it's good practice, so I was like, right, we'll put one in. Then a kind of another structural point, your introduction shouldn't be that long. My introduction was literally just like my key definitions and then a link to my first paragraph. It was like 150 words. It could have been longer, yes, but that would have added nothing to my essay. Like if you've got like a lot of stuff to define, you probably need a slightly longer essay, like a slightly longer introduction. But I literally had like 3 keywords to define, so it didn't have to be long for me. Then, structure of my actual paragraphs. You know in like GCSE English, when you learn point, evidence, analysis, link, peel. I used that. Like I made my point with the study, here's my evidence, like here is, you know, the proof. Then I analysed the study and then I linked it to my next paragraph. And I just did that like 12 times, subconsciously. But like when I was reading back through it, I was like, why have I used GCSE English structure? Like that is just apparently what I did. I also did shorter paragraphs. Like I did a lot of short paragraphs rather than like big ones, because I was talking about a lot of separate things. Like when you start to talk about like a new section, like a new thing, do another paragraph. Then learn how to reference. My references, I don't know how much like they were worth, but we got like basically we got told like what bits of our essay were good and what bits weren't, and I got told my references were only like a 2-1, which obviously like it's not bad, but considering my essay was a 78, like because my references got so messed up in Microsoft Word, hate Microsoft Word, like my references were only 2-1. So like check that you know how to reference, check that all of your references are good, use reference generators, use Google Scholar, use CiteThis4me, like make sure your references are good, because they're easy ways to keep and get marks. Like if you mess up your references, you're gonna just lose marks that you really don't need to lose. So then use your feedback. So if you get given feedback, or you have ever been given feedback, use it. Like if this is not your first essay and you know you've handed in like 2 essays before to university and they've given you feedback, read through your feedback. What are like general common things that they've said? Like if they've said your references are not great, you know, make sure your references are great, because clearly that's an area that's not been great before. Like if they say your introduction is too weak, work out what they meant by that. Then something I did, which I really love, I used text-to-speech to listen to my essay. Like I would literally like lay on my desk, head down, pretty much going to sleep, and just play my essay on text-to-speech. Like I have Clara Read from Disabled Students Allowance, but there's also a website called Text-to-Speech, like it's literally called like TTS Reader. I'll link it down below if I remember. And it's great, you can pick the speed. So I would literally just have my person speeding through my essay. Like the first time I listened to it really slow. And like, you can hear if there's mistakes. Like you can hear if you've spelt a word technically correct, but it's not the word that you wanted. Like it is, I highly recommend, because it just, honestly, like just when you wake up, if you're going to the toilet, play your essay, like, and just listen and just see like, have I found any mistakes? Is anything wrong with this? Does it actually flow like an essay? And obviously it's not gonna flow that well because, you know, it's a horrible robotic voice. But like, I find it really helpful. I found it really good to listen to it in text-to-speech reader and just check like, does it make sense? Is it actually, does it work? So that is pretty much all I have to say about essays, how to get first in an essay. Obviously it's different for different subjects, you know, obviously not everyone is aiming for a first either. So like this isn't like a you have to aim for a first. Like if you're aiming for a 2-2, that's fine. If you're aiming for a 2-1, that's fine. This is just how I kind of did my essay to a first class level. Hopefully this has been helpful in some way to kind of tell you like if you've never written a university essay before, like I hadn't, then hopefully this is helpful to tell you like how it kind of works and how you should kind of go about doing it. So that is the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any kind of questions or want me to make any more videos about this kind of thing, leave a comment down below and I will happily do so.